I already told you that I am from Belgium. As you know, it's a very small country in Europe. And we are in the center of the country, quite near Brussels. These are some pictures from our hospital. We see quite some, persons with 22q11 delusion. As you see, a lot of them are, in some group is in the baby preschool period, and I'm going to talk about them. There is a huge group in the primary and adolescents, and then there are also adults. As you all know, and we have heard this from many speakers this morning already, this condition causes a lot of physical medical problems, but also during development it becomes clear that some or many of our children have also or face some developmental challenges and behavioral challenges. But before I start and talk about, the baby and the preschool period and what is, in my experience, very important, I want to stress that, okay, although your baby or your son or your daughter has a 22q11 delusion, does not mean that this will really influence everything in your life. There are so many other things, like, the environment, maturation, education, their interaction, the family you live in, the experience. So it's an all interaction and dynamic thing. Even within the group of people with 22q11, we see this huge variability, which means, okay, there are so many changes. So I really want to stress that this is in normal population, this is in normal development like this is in your child too. So every child, every person is very unique and will have his or her own developmental trajectory. So we see a wide variability, and this is not, I think, very unusual, and it's this dynamic interaction. So what do we know from 22q11? I always try to, use this picture for parents when they come for the first time, or to explain that, depending on when we see the children very young, of course, the medical concerns, often there is a medical problem because congenital heart defect, the child is diagnosed very early, or sometimes I see young adults and then they have the diagnosis, and then it's often the medical concerns were less prominent, but there are, for instance, some learning difficulties or some social problems and so on. And in this condition, you will see that there is always a little bit this balance, or these two things which can be sometimes more on the medical. In some periods of the life, the medical issues can be more prominent in the life of your child. In other periods, it can be that developmental and behavioral concerns are much more. And I think it's important to always look, whenever you see and you have that we keep that in mind. So I'm going to talk about the first 6 years of life, and here we see some pictures of a person. She's now an adult of 24 years, so I have known her for a very, very long time. But as you can see on the first photo, she had a heart surgery, and she needed also, there was a lot of feeding problems in the beginning. So what do we know from the medical? I'm not going to repeat it because you know already, depending on, in every child it's different, but there are a lot of things which can, needs our attention from the parents and the doctors and the child itself, also to feel comfortable. And I think that's very important, that as soon as possible that this is, either the child is operated for the cardiac problem, or the whole, the immunity problems is solved or followed up, because I think it's crucial for everyone, especially for these children, that that their health is as good as possible that we can have. Because this is in interaction with each other. If you do not feel yourself, if you're sick, if you're ill, if you are, this will also influence your development. And what do we know from development? Well, the first years of life, we know, of course, the hypotonia, the motor delay, speech and language delay, and that's the reason, and it continues through the first and the second year, and that's most of the time between 1 and 2 years. We see that children that it becomes more obvious that there is some kind of delay in sometimes one area more pronounced than the other one, but that there can be some mild to moderate delays in gross fine motor and skills, general cognition, and speech language. And this is just a little bit the protocol or a summary of our protocol, our follow-up, what we try to do. On one side, what do we need to know at that point, and what can we do? So when I see the children and the diagnosis made very early, I see them at least at 1 year and 2 years, and we do a baby developmental scale, which is a very early observation of development and the play, also the way the baby, is exploring or not exploring. So it's quite broad. It's not a really intelligence test. It's more a kind of evaluation of and observation of the development. And what is very important is that we always also want to have a check of the hearing, because it's very, very important even in that very early age, 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, to have this checked. Because we see that if I ask parents, do you think your child hears well? Yeah, I think he does. Now we know that the majority of children do not have a normal hearing. I don't know if some of you, of the parents, heard some of the talks in the professional meeting, but there was a study by one of our EMT doctors, and she presented on 40 children and young adults, and not one of them had a normal hearing. Not one of them was completely normal. So I think the hearing is very important also during that early, because as Cindy said, it's so important that we can start early, but then of course we have to know how it is for your child. Should we do something or not? What can we do once we know, okay, your child has this development? Well, what we recommend and what we try to organize is early intervention. Now, I think we have the advantage that we live in a small country, so I can go to the home to do the assessment, and then once I make a report for the parents and the doctors. We try to look at people in the region of the family to go to the home. So we have mobile, ambulant, early intervention teams. Probably you have it in some areas of your country too, or not. So that you can, those teams can go into the house. And most of the time these are people who have they are multidisciplinary teams. So it can start, for instance, if your baby would have, let's say, a lot of feeding problems, or there are a lot of concerns on pre-language, the speech therapist or the speech language therapist of those early intervention team will come first. Is it, for instance, more on motor? It can be that the physiotherapist will come, and it's a kind of, most of the time I see that the parents, that we make a combination of, this early intervention team, and depending on the severity or the need of the child, also sometimes combination of an individual therapy, like for instance physiotherapy or occupational therapy, will be important, and therefore often our families go to somebody outside their home to have weekly, for instance, occupational therapy or physiotherapy. Just as an example, why I think it's so important for these children that they get physiotherapy and occupational therapy. We know that these children they have this hypotonia, and this hypotonia will also have a big influence on their early motor milestones, but also their opportunities to explore things. They must do much more effort, and I also see that they do not, or some of them do not have the automatic. For instance, if you would fall, that you would put your hands. Or you fall like that you do this automatically. A lot of them just fall like that and they don't put their hands. So one of the things, for instance, in his first, on the left side, what you see is that the physiotherapist, she's trying to learn this baby, so she rolls him over the ball, and so he learns that he has to put his hands, otherwise he will no. So there are, I think the physiotherapists and the occupational therapists, they are doing wonderful work. There are so many things to do. So you can work on gross motor skills, but also on fine motor skills and visual motor skills. In the sense, on the right side of the photo that you see, there the physiotherapist, she is supporting him because he cannot sit yet. Normally, a child will start to sit alone around, let's say, 6, 7, 8 months. A lot of our children do not sit alone at that age. But it's very important for your cognitive development that you can, not only lie like that, but that you can have this position and that you can see, oh, I can push that button and there's a reaction enough. So you see, she learns, and the parents too, that okay, well, okay, he cannot sit alone, but don't worry, we will do a little bit later, we will work on that. But in the meantime, you can support him, and then he has this same experience by just, well, touching and looking at things. So I think that's very important, but it depends, of course, on every child. And then I'm not going to talk too much about it. I think Cindy and all the former speakers already talked a lot about it, but what is really crucial also in this period is that what we call a total communication approach. So that it's not, well, and you see several, by reading books, by talking, by signing, and Cindy also, we are also very much in favor of, or we have very good results, especially also with other children with other genetic syndromes, where the early language development starts late, or the expressive, I should say, language development, that it's very important to start as soon as possible with a kind of communication, that the child gets, well, learns, oh, I cannot say, for instance, ball, but that he or she can use a sign. It's not like an official sign language that sometimes is used in children who have severe hearing problems or deaf, but it's called, well, it's in Flemish, smog, which means spreken met ondersteuning van gebaren, and in English it's SWSS, speaking with support of signs. It was originally developed by Philip Long, who is a professor of language and speech development from Leuven, from Ghent, from the University of Ghent, so in Belgium. But he moved to the University of Virginia many years ago, and I also know now that it's translated in many countries and it's used in many countries, and it's for many children and their parents it has been a wonderful thing because it reduces the stress and it gives you an opportunity to really communicate with your child. And don't be afraid that you think, oh, if I will start, with using those things, he will never use words because he has this, We see that even children in other groups that, they start even earlier as what you normally would expect. So, I move now to the preschool, and I really want to stress from the medical point of view, I think an eye exam at age 3 should be really in every child. Because it's so important that you have it. We have it now in our protocol for every person with a particular one delusion. Although there are no signs for, there could be a vision problem or an eye problem. We all send them to our ophthalmologist just to have a checkup. And then in case something is discovered, she organizes the regular follow-up. In case it's not, she will say, okay, I want to see you within a year, within 18 months. So like that. During these preschool years, I just want to focus on 2 things because, it's so a variable picture. But I think there are 2 domains which I really want, from an educational point of view, would like to stress, and that is the pre-arithmetic skills and the visual perceptual skills. Why the visual perceptual processing? Well, I think a good visual perceptual processing and visual spatial insight are very important for your motor skills. For instance, if you want to learn, to play a kind of tennis, or it's very important that you have the ball and that you get, a sense of, I have to do it back. So it's very important for that, but also for a little bit later when your fine motor skills, when you have to learn to read and write, that I can, so that you have a good idea of the forms and the things you have to do. It's very important also for your academic skills, because it will have an influence on your pre-arithmetic skills, on mathematics, on geography and so on. For instance, this is of course already a very complicated map, but you can imagine once they are in primary school and they have to, where is our country, what is Europe, where is America, and you do not have, it's not well organized. This is really chaos for you as a child. But it's not only important for motor and for, skills in school, it's also for your daily living skills and for your social cognitive skills, very important. Think about, for instance, we are I gave this talk when I was last year in Madrid, and I see Puerta del Sol, you know. So, for instance, you are walking in Madrid and you say, okay, we will meet there at that pub. Okay, if I have a very poor visual skill and do not know how to see it as a map and to see, okay, there are some, bigger lines and, I will never find the way or I will never find you. But even in a much younger, at a much younger age, this is also important. For instance, this is your school, this is your playground. Where is my class? Where is my teacher? Where are the toilets in this school? So if this visual processing is not the way it should go, it is a major task for you. And we are often not aware about why this is so important for them. And then finally, also your social cognitive skills is important because when we are talking to each other, we look also at each other, and there is much more said often by the body than by words. So if you cannot read very well, the visual signs and the body, then you also have some problems by getting along with peers. So what we have seen in children especially around the preschool age, you see this, is that they can have problems with visual recognition. So you all know these things. On the left side, you see, an elephant and then an apple, and they have to find the same thing, which is just recognition. Some children with 21 have really big problems with this. We have also seen that they have a lot of problems with recognizing and identifying objects. The objects for instance, that when I showed, for instance, this on the left side, this is a banana. A lot of children with 22q11 say, no, it's a butterfly. You see, they only look at the lower part of the picture. Or when I show that photo, it's not a curl of some butter, but it's a worm. They also have a lot of problem when there are too much visual stimuli. For instance, find the 7 differences in this picture. A lot of children, they love it. The majority of these children, it's very difficult for them. And it's not only attention. It can be also visual perceptual skills. So you can imagine if you get this at school, and for instance, try to find groups of 3, try to find, this is a really difficult task. Just by the fact how this task is presented for them. I'm not testing for them now, do you know the amount of 3? This is much more difficult for them. This is too much visual overload for them. So they also can have problems with visual closure. If you look at this picture, which kind of form do you see? Very good. So you don't have a problem with visual closure. A lot of these children are saying, I don't see anything. There is no form. So you see, the ball or the... So, what have we seen? Children with, especially already from early preschool age on, they need more time for visual information processing. They sometimes really misinterpret visual objects. They have problems with visual motor integration and problems with spatial insight. And I think it's a very important skill because it's so interconnected with so many other skills. So what do we recommend specifically for, how should we tackle these problems? I think first of all, an eye exam on a very young age is very important to exclude or diagnose a vision problem. A visual perceptual problem has in fact nothing to do with vision because that's perception, but still it's very important that you have at least a normal vision or a corrected vision. And so if we discover eye problems or vision problems, they can always be corrected, but that's step 1. Be secondly, alert for visual perceptual problems. So your perception is something, that's the way how we, for instance, if I would ask each of you, where is the door? You all know that it's there. Those children, or some of them, don't know even if they are for half a day in the classroom, where is the door? And you see them looking. Observe this. You can do it as in your home, you can do it in the class, you can do it during their play. If there are sometimes situations that you think, why can't he solve this problem? Always also think about that it could be visual perception. And in case, if there are several elements, Well, we could do, well, there are some batteries from the age from 4 years on that we can do a specific, what we call CVI assessment, which is a cortical visual impairment assessment. Okay. Yeah. So then the second, which is really important, is the pre-arithmetic skills. I can imagine that a lot of parents who have an older child that you will recognize this, well, they start to read and they start to write, but the mathematics is a big, big challenge for the majority. And how does it come? Well, you see these 5 apples, and a lot of children with 20q11 have a problems with number sense and awareness of amount. They can count and repeat like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and sometimes a lot of parents say, oh, but he can already count until 20, for instance. But if you then sometimes give them some blocks and you say, how many are there? They always have to start from 1. And normally around 3, 4, children know, well, the amount of 5. They say, how old are you? I'm 5, I'm 2. Children, they always have to start from scratch. So this is very important to know that that's also for the teacher in the school, that you, first of all, take into account that this will need much more repetition and rehearsal, and that also by the way you present your task is also crucial, because here your visual perception, this is for instance a very good arithmetic paper for them to make, to solve, and not the former one with the elephant in and all that was too much visual overload. I'm going to skip this because one of my PhD students, he did his thesis on the mathematical problems, and there is really a specific problem that we see over and over again. What can you do? Well, number board games. These are very old games, but this is a very natural way of just learning how the amount, the follow-up of figures, the amount. So in many preschoolers with 20q11, what do we recommend from educational point of view? Well, it starts always with an appropriate diagnosis of the developmental problem, or that's crucial. And based on that, we can make or try to develop as best as possible an appropriate education and support. And it will be dependent from your child, but it can. So it will be either in mainstream with support, or sometimes it's necessary, or we advise that the child goes to a special education class, depending on the cognitive abilities. Always try to find a balance between stimulation and adaptation and anticipatory guidance. So that's very important. And finally, and I'm going to close, is that we should not forget you too as parents. Because there are so many things. You have to look after those medical things, the schooling things. Often you have other children. So I think support is so crucial also for you. In a sense, well, first of all, get good knowledge about the condition. And if you are uncertain about something, go to a team, go to people who can explain it to you. Secondly, so knowledge is really important. Knowledge on the condition, but also knowledge on the developmental stage of your child and how your child fits into that. Is he slow on that or really fast? And then based on that profile we can we can try to develop a kind of educational approach. And finally, I also think encourage you, because I can say those things, but you have to do it every day. So these are just 2 books which I really think can help you perhaps. It has learned me a lot. Well, there is a mother of, I think from the Netherlands, she has wrote a book about her boy with 20q11 being different. So growing up with impairments, it can help you, but it probably can also help your child. And I think it's translated in English now, I don't know. And then another book, it's a very old book, but it's one of my favorite books, Just Like Us. It's from Carol Martin. It's a book from in the 80s, and she has written a book about parenting children with, some challenges, learning disabilities and technical disabilities. And I think it's a fabulous book. So I want to close with this. Thank you for your attention.